Hey Ben, what's up,
My
man?
man, how are you?
Good. So the topic of this week's episode, what we're going to focus on is buying in this shifting market, and you and I are going to try to give buyers the best advice for how to go out there in the market and look for a home if they're still in the market for one. And like you said, people are still in the market shopping for homes right now, right?
Absolutely.
And the Fed the Fed raised the rate yesterday, but that lowered mortgage interest rates on your side. If let's say somebody came to you with a 750 credit score right now, looking for a conventional loan, they're putting down 10%. What would you say is a good range of an interest rate today if they locked in on a rate? What kind of rate would they be looking at?
High fours, low fives.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's just say you have the best credit score for rate 740 or higher, single family home, 10% down, whatever it was, conventional mortgage. Yeah, I mean, you can, and the government loans, FHA, USDA, VA, those are all in the, high fours.
Wow, that's incredible. All right.
Easy.
I didn't think we would see fours again until next year.
Well, you just never know. And you just have to lock these people on these dips because it's just a roller coaster right now. Because I guarantee you tomorrow, it could be totally different because, the inflation numbers come out again tomorrow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if those numbers come out hotter than expected, you could see people put money elsewhere, and you can see the bond market react to that, and mortgage interest rates could go up again. So it's all about timing right now. You just got, we're just riding these waves, and so we just have to make sure that, of course I look at the numbers all day, every day, but we just have to make sure that we're locking people in the dips to make sure that we're protecting them and they're getting the best deal possible. So
right. It also, a lot of it depends on the neighborhood. Buyers in this market really need to rely on the advice of their real estate agent a lot, because you can be looking at two different neighborhoods. One, let's say in the Smyrna area where we are, a subdivision, with, a swim tennis subdivision, as opposed to, a standalone property over in maybe the Doraville area or something like that, or Decatur or something, somewhere. Those properties are going to be completely different when it comes to the competition in those areas. So you really want to rely on your agent to, show you what the competition is, what the comps are in the area, feel out what, how motivated the seller is, those kind of things, because you don't want to end up, putting out terms that are going to hurt you in the long run if you don't necessarily have to do that right now. So I pulled up new listings for the last 7 days, 3,446 new listings in the last 7 days. This is for the entire metro area, FMLS. Closed, we had price decreases, 3,043 price decreases. So quite a few. And then closed 2,700, expired only 161 expired, so that's not too bad. But yeah, those price decreases, man, the price decreases up there that we're seeing so many of, eventually those end up in the expired column, so that's that. Eventually that line will get longer.
I think it's going to come back to what we were doing like in 2018 and 2019, doing buy downs. So
yeah, aren't you already seeing that?
Yeah, like if you're a seller and you're a selling agent, so instead of you doing a price decrease, why don't you offer the buyers to help them buy down their interest rate, right? So if you have so much money to play with as a buyer, you can use your max seller concessions, okay, to buy down the interest rate after closing cost. Because normally what happens is a seller can really only pay closing costs, but if they're buying down the rate and there's points included to buy down the rate, the seller can actually pay for that. Okay.
Oh,
As
really?
long as
Whoa,
you
wait,
know-
like, and that doesn't go to that maximum contribution thing?
It does, and that's where you got to be careful because, if for example, if you're doing a $500,000 home, right, and the max concession is your 3% or 6% or 9%, depending on what your percentage down is. But let's say the max seller concession is 6%, okay, on a deal. What is that? 500,000 times 6%. That's $30,000 you can play with. Okay, that's a ton of money, right?
Okay.
So
yeah.
instead of bringing your price of your home down, keep it where it's at. Tell them that you'll help with the seller buy down their interest rate to help with their monthly payment because they like the house. That now they qualify, or now they're buying down their interest rate, so it's even a better rate for them, and their closing costs are being paid for, or vice versa. You can use that money wherever you want to.
Okay, so one more time. A seller can buy down a buyer's rate and contribute to closing cost at the same time?
Absolutely. As long as it doesn't go over the max seller concession.
What's the max seller concession for a conventional loan?
Well, it all depends on down payment. It's either 3%, 6%, or 9%.
Okay, so if they're let's say a buyer's putting down 10% on a conventional loan, what's the max contribution?
I believe it's 3%. Let me look. I don't want to tell you wrong though. You know what I mean? Now that we actually started talking about it,
Does the concession go up as their down payment goes up?
Yeah. So 10% to 25% is 6%. So anywhere from 3% to 9.99% is 3%. 10% up to 25% is 6%. 25% or more is 9% in seller concession.
So if they're putting down 10%, if the buyer's putting down 10% on the loan, they'll get, or on the house, they can get up to a 6%
seller concession. So that, and if you do the math, which we can talk about this again next week, and I can actually pull up graphs to show you, it's better for the buyer to buy it without doing a price deduction, buy down the interest rate, okay, with the seller's money, than the seller doing a price reduction and you not getting any closing costs, doing nothing. Because what happens is the seller at that point, they've already taken off $20,000 or whatever the number is. Well, they could use that $20,000 and move it to the buyer and still keep the sale price up.
Mm-hmm. How does the seller on the settlement statement, It just
comes across as a seller concession.
Okay. Seller concession that goes directly to the lender.
It goes directly to the buyer to help offset the closing costs and the discount points to buy down the interest rate.
Okay. So we do need to look at
because it's a great strategy. I mean, we were doing it all the time in 18 and 19 when stuff was starting to get stale and sit, and people they're like, okay, what can we do to make our listing more attractive to buyers? Well, in the private remarks that you have access to, seller is willing to, put X amount of dollars down for closing costs and rate buy down for the buyer. It's to move this property or whatever. When that comes across on the settlement statement as, let's say it's $30,000. If the $30,000 comes across on the settlement statement as a seller concession to the buyer, how does that affect their interest rate? When we lock the loan, we know how much dollars it takes to buy the interest rate down. So let's say they're going from 5% to 4%, and it costs $12,000 to do that. Okay, then we can move that down. All right.
Oh, okay. So it's a concession. it's a concession on the settlement statement to the buyer, but I mean, eventually it has to come to the lender, correct?
Well,
Or no?
yeah, at the end of the day, it does go to the lender because they're buying down the rate.
Okay, gotcha.
But you got to be careful. You know, there's a good strat. This is a great strategy, but you also have to run into what we call high cost and how we offset those discount points with them being paid by the seller. Just because we have to make sure that we mark that, hey, this fee is being paid by the seller, just so it doesn't hit, as far as we don't run into what they call high cost and we get flagged and it gets audited and stuff. So we have to be careful on how much dollars we are doing.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that is a good strategy. I mean, I know that, closing cost contribution obviously helps. Most buyers that I, work with and have worked with in the past, they're concerned about holding on to more cash and not giving it all up at closing. So that definitely helps. But I mean, if a seller can help to buy down a buyer's rate by as much as, like you said, they could potentially buy down the rate by a full percentage point?
You could. No? I mean, depending on that spread that day. I mean, it could be a half a point. It could be a point. I mean, you never know. But I mean, you're talking about, it could be $100, $200 a month, depending on the price point of the home, that they're saving in interest that's being paid by the seller. That makes your listing a little bit more attractive than the next one, right? Especially if it's been sitting for months.
Absolutely. And because the title of this episode is buying in a shifting market, this is a really good point for buyers. If there's a house you're looking at, or when you're out looking at houses, I should say, and you're thinking, what are some strategic things that I can do to put myself in the best position, other than due diligence period, appraisal, purchase price. This is a really good thing to look at. Another thing that I can do to put myself in a better position is to ask the seller to buy down my interest rate for me. And I don't know that we're necessarily there right now, but we're going to get there. I mean, I think once we get back to that, we start edging closer to 3 months of inventory, and which it's coming up right now. I mean, that's the numbers that since I had that up, I'll add that to the screen, but it's getting there, So we're getting close to that 3 months of inventory. Now look at that line. I mean, with new listings, the new listing and the pending line for forever, 2020, 2021, that new listing line was shorter than the pending line. And now it's just every time I look at it, that's where it's at, maxed out. So
dang.
We're not there. We're not quite there yet, but we will be. So
it's crazy.
That's cool, man. I like that. I like the idea of giving buyers one more thing they can use, and also giving sellers one more thing they can use, right? Something else to add to it to make it more attractive. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon. Later, man.
Thanks, brother. Have a good day.
You too.